tight, crown like cold winter light. Scroll in hand, 7 seals, every word cuts and heals. Red horse screams, hooves like drums, sword raised high, kingdoms come, peace unstitched by a single roar. I hear thunder at my door, wars and rumors of wars, spoken like a curse in the dark. Every headline, every scar is another cracked heart in the ark. Wars and rumors of wars, hey, echo from the prophets and seers. When the lamb breaks the seal, all the old world shakes with our fears. Black horse ways, bread and bone, steel stilled hard, iron stone. Measure grain by a dying sun, silver short for everyone. Pale horse waits, eyes like ash, graves awake, tombs unlatch. Hades hangs on a trailing chain, every pulse spells your name. Wars and rumors of wars, spoken like a curse in the dark. Every headline, every scar's another cracked heart in the ark. Wars and rumors of wars, whoa, echo from the prophets and seers. When the lamb breaks the seal, all the old world shakes with our fears. Fifth seal opens. How long? How long? Blood at the altar becomes a song. Sixth seal shatters, sky like glass. Kings of the earth hide in the cracks. Wars and rumors of wars, spoken like a curse in the dark. Every headline, every scar is another cracked heart in the ark. Wars and rumors of wars, echo from the prophets and seers. When the lamb breaks the seal, all the old world drowns in its fears.
Oh, we're getting there. I see Phil and them in the background. Look at that. Got a dual shot going on. Fancy pants. All right, I'm going to jump straight in here, chat room, because it's going to take me a second to transfer our good friends over. Hit the like, share the show. Let's see, I go to preview mode, and then I throw some switches, and at these, and let's click into there, and I think this should work. This is one of the, I think the only other time I've ever had, a twofer in a single screen was when the China Show guys came on. And that was a travesty. That was in the early days of trying to get them in over the green screen. So this could be a nightmare or the dream combination. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm bringing them on right now. Here's Boston Brian and Phil. Can I hear them, though? That's the question.
Can you hear us?
That's interesting. So they're obviously making noise, and I'm obviously not hearing them. That's the fun part. You know what? You know what it is? It's Brian. No, I'm kidding. You're there. I can hear you now. It's all good.
Test.
Yep, sound good. Yep, I agree, because of the value of the conversation alone. I got to say, this looks like a show. Both the two of you on screen at the same time. And you know, it's the hardest part is looking right at the camera. I have a little separate thing where I move the visual up into the teleprompter for myself that I don't use as a teleprompter, but I use it to basically look you guys in the eyes. And first of all, for those that don't know, of course, you should look up and subscribe to Boston Brian and Phil's channels. It's it's a Bing away. At this point, should we even give Google the business? It's a duck go away from feeling some sort of edification. Obviously, they're on the set of Phil's show On the Edge. Has a new show every Sunday. Boston Brian is regularly kicking out live stuff. And he's in Ukraine right now delivering trucks, it seems, which is so macho. It's barely, I mean, honestly, do they have big tires on them? That's all I want to know. But the key is do yourself a favor and look up both of them and all that stuff right now. And the odd thing is, as familiar as they are with each other, you guys actually ran into each other on the street, did you not?
Yeah.
Recently.
What was that, Saturday?
I think so.
Yeah.
What are the odds?
I walked right by him. I didn't even notice. Not that I was like looking out for Phil on the streets of Kyiv the second I got here, but
right.
Yeah, I texted him saying that I was in the city, and he said that he was about 30 seconds away from me in a spot that I had just recently passed. And then when I saw where he was, I might have stepped on his foot actually, and not.
Right. And there's so many husky dudes with voluminous beards walking around that place. I can only imagine. I was just watching a mini documentary, I would call it, about I guess they call him Magyar, the guy who's one of the big drone operator guys. And that's obviously was the turning point in this situation. I want to start with Brian being new in country. He's been there once before, but what's your experience this time versus last time? Anything that stood out to you? The process of helping and going, those kind of things. I'm sure the chat is very curious about.
Well, beyond the process and the travel time and route to get here, a big difference was the ballistic missiles. The first time I was in Ukraine, we had air raid alerts every night that I was here, but I was fortunate not to be under any strikes or even hear any anti-missile drone defenses go up at all. So it was Ukraine. Kyiv was getting hammered just before I came, and then just after I left, they were Russia returned to business. That in between
coincidence? I think not.
Right, is when my first trip happened. So I was very fortunate, very lucky. This time, the very first night I got here was, if I'm not mistaken, the night of the biggest missile attack of the entire war from Russia, if not up there on the list.
Yeah.
So it was vastly different. We kind of expected it because of the Ukrainian strike on the Russian Amazon, business that they had. So we kind of figured that something was coming. I don't know if it was directly linked to that, but everybody had been saying that at some point they're likely to retaliate. But that was definitely a greeting that I'm not soon to forget.
Yeah, and you had to, I don't think last time you had to go down into any of the shelters while you were there.
Don't tell my mom, but I still haven't.
Okay, you naughty boy. So, Phil, do you call Phil and go, Phil, what do we do? Do I listen to Mark Hamill and stay above ground?
Yeah, the Mark Hamill thing has gone away, by the way, which is too bad. But they've been pelting us since the second. That was the day they hit the hotel right next door to me. They've increased their ballistic missiles because they know that we don't have any Patriots. So yeah, they've really been relying more on the ballistic missiles than they have the Shahed or the other drones or whatever. It's thanks to Donald Trump. We need we need Patriot missiles, and he's not been giving them to us. And so the Russians know it, and they know that the Ukrainians can shoot down the drones, but they have a real hard time with the ballistic missiles, especially the hypersonics. So yeah, it's been all of July has just been pretty awful. So
And it
we'll
seems,
see.
yeah, it seems like they're throwing everything they possibly can at you guys right now. With this, some of it's in retaliation. Obviously, the deep strikes. We've had some of those before, and the spiderweb attack and all that kind of stuff. When Trump told Zelensky he didn't have the cards and all that kind of stuff was a major thing. But the reach of some of these, and then I think the Wildberries strike and the it's all right. You should always have your phone on in the circumstance that you're in. I will never worry about that. It's like a crying baby
I'm shutting
in
it off.
church. Like, let the baby be. Obviously, the Lord is trying to tell us something. So the one of the things, excuse me, that well, you guys are dealing with this back and forth, but the receiving, the return fire from Russia seems to be predicated now on this: you're making life for the citizenry of Russia, if not wholly uncomfortable, aware of, oh yeah, we're in a war.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the one thing that I got from my time walking around today, I had the opportunity to go visit the world's most resilient McDonald's. Here in the city that's been repeatedly, if not targeted, in and around the Russian missile attacks in that area. Pretty much the entire block on this street has been wiped out, and just under the buildings, on the foot of the buildings of these burnt out husks of buildings, was the market that the babushkas were having, selling their fruit, selling their vegetables, and it was like the life goes on here, and that it clicked. Not that it hadn't clicked before, but it really stuck out to me that this city will never be conquered. These people will never be conquered. There's just, the amount of military force that would be needed and the amount of death and destruction that would go along with it is just, it's incomprehensible that what would be needed in order to take over a people like this that are like, I don't care if that building's still smoking. I don't care if we have no windows. I'm going to open my business. We're doing this market. Like, life goes on here. And it's an incredible sight to see where, we're taking pictures and looking at like the buildings and the evidence of the, Russian terrorism. And then the Ukrainians are just, going about their daily business. Like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Not like it's nothing, but what else are they going to do really,
It's the new norm in that regard. And then Phil, is there an element of, hey, keep an eye out while you're here for this, and this when you guys are talking? Or is it, because again, on a personal level, you're in a very dangerous situation and both of you handle it incredibly well. And I think everybody here is both proud of you guys and worried for you guys intermittently, in a cycle. It's like this carousel of emotion about this. So what are you guys talking about when you're sitting down together in this, Phil, since you're there all the time?
Well, I give you some recommendations of some sites to go see, and I know that Brian's been hanging out with a lot of the guys that brought in the trucks with him. So they've got their own kind of thing going on, and I've been working on putting together this week's show and a couple of other things. We talk about the situation here. We talk about this political crisis that we've just kind of gotten through. We were discussing that and reactions to that. And, some folks we have in common, this was a large group that came in.
If I'm not mistaken, it's the largest NAFO handover as far as number of trucks in there since they've been doing this. I think they've handed over 1,200 vehicles this time. I think we had, don't quote me on this, 34 to 38 different vehicles of all different types. Some were U-Haul types that could be outfitted for whatever the regiment needs. A lot of pickup trucks with, big burly tires, as you were talking about, for the, for the rough roads and the environment on the front. And it was just, it's an honor and a privilege to be a part of it. It really, really is. And every time I come back to this city, I love it even more. I actually stayed longer than the NAFO group did, just for that specific reason, so I could experience it more myself and have that freedom to kind of, see the city on my terms. And to your original question, it's amazing how much the strikes and what to do in the strikes and anything related to that doesn't come up in conversation. Like it's almost not even thought about. Like we've been talking about the political environment here, and I went to a lot of the protests that were going on between Fedorov and Siersky, and now with the new appointment here, I'm kind of asking Phil what's he hearing on the street, what's the sentiment, and relaying what I've heard from people on the street. So it's it's an oddly political atmosphere to as far as what we're speaking about here, as not militarily significantly, and not just about like what to do in a strike, because with these and it sucks to say, but unfortunately with these ballistic missiles, it's there's only so much that you can do. You can take precautions and you can do everything that you need to do, but I'm of the feeling that if one of them's got my hotel room number on it, then it's got my hotel room number on it at that point. Like I'm not going to let them disrupt the way that they want to disrupt. It's a psychological game they're playing as well, not letting the people in Ukraine get 8 hours of sleep, continuing to get them frustrated and keep them tired and that whole thing. It's a game in and of itself. So I just, it is what it is at this point. I understand the danger. I understand the risk that I'm taking, and it is what it is at that point.
Yeah. So I guess
it's happening with such frequency that, I mean, if you went every time an alarm goes off, you'd be up and down and up and down and up and down. And it's just not feasible.
Right.
So yeah, at some point you kind of just have to give in to fate.
Are we also suggesting they should have some sort of like color code like we had during the War on Terror in the beginning of it? This is a yellow, this is an orange, this is a red, like when you can really tell whether something's coming in? Or do you think people just judge for themselves based on the volume of attacks that are happening?
Well, they have the Air Alert app, which is really, really helpful, but there's so many, like there's been, I think don't quote me on this, 2 or 3 today, and without any strikes or anything like that. So it's like that, the boy who cried wolf. There's only so many times, like he said, that you can run down and stop your day, go sit in a shelter for 20, 30 minutes to have nothing happen, and then continue doing that. At some point, it's just like, you don't know when, and it's really, there's nothing you can change if you do know when, to tell you the truth. So
right.
So the first time I was here, the first air raid siren, I looked at what everybody else was doing around me, and I wasn't going to be the only one, sprinting through traffic, and because they were all just blinders on, carrying on with daily life. So,
well, so one of the big pieces of news back here that I think is kind of shocking in maggotdom, and is maybe a broken clock moment, maybe an actual turn, was Laura Loomer's flip, which all she had to do was go and see for herself. And she didn't just say, I might have been wrong, or she didn't dance around it. She was like, I feel like such an asshole for minimizing the struggle of Ukrainians. That's a direct quote. She said, while she was there, just experienced my first air raid in Ukraine, sirens blaring. This is every day for every Ukrainian. I feel like such an asshole for minimizing them for the last 5 years. I often said I don't care. Looking back, that wasn't very nice of me to say. There are people in Ukraine who have to run to a bomb shelter every day, and some of us had the audacity to say Russia wasn't wrong because we believe the lie that Ukraine is a country full of Nazi sympathizers. We have been so propagandized by Russia, and we don't even realize it. Like, that's not a tepid flip. That is a massive about face from someone who, again, allegedly bragged about filleting the president on Air Force One during the last campaign.
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing to me how much hate for Candace Owens could change somebody's political views.
Right. Yeah, maybe it's just that the dividing line is Tucker and Candace, and so anywhere if Tucker and Candace are on that side, the other side must be the good guys. And you very well may be right. It might just be that kind of thing. But she did go and she did experience it and she was there. And, and the whole point, I showed it yesterday on my show, but she did a video where she was talking about somebody on her production team, which the idea that she has a production team for Loomered is amazing. Like it's so weird. You know what I mean? It's like when you find out somebody's got 5 staffers and you're like, yeah, I thought you just did like makeup tutorials, but it's like that. And I've got a bunch of questions coming in. Thank you, Andrea, for grabbing those for you guys from the chat. But apparently she got the opportunity to send a quote correspondent for her show. And I'm like, does she have correspondence at all? And that's why she actually went. But she decided to go on her own. And this was a big deal, apparently. And I think she went to Kiev and she went to, I want to say she went to Odessa or somewhere near there in the process of things, because primarily it was to go to Odessa.
Already? I sat outside the Intercontinental for at least an hour today, waiting for her to walk out.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think she's got a live. She does this roadshow live musical of Saw that she's in, and they've got a lot of dates lined up for the fall. So I think she's back here working on that.
Jake Bro was part of the NAFO handover, and he was he said that he saw her at the lobby of the hotel that they were staying at. So we were like, what the heck is going on? And then we saw after her, the content that she was putting out saying that she was here. But, Phil and I have been discussing that not too long ago. Same thing, going back to your other question of what we've been talking about. And it's like, this awkward situation of being in the position and the necessity of having to utilize anybody that could raise awareness, anybody that can bring reality of what's taking place on the ground in Ukraine to people that may not be hearing it all the time. So it's like we got that on one side while also knowing what Laura Loomer is, what she's capable of.
Right.
Again, I throw up the Tucker Carlson and the Candace Owens thing as being a huge catalyst for this, huge switch from going from writing articles from RT to saying what she said in the Post. It's like, I don't trust her as far as I could throw her, and I feel like she needs to be walked like a goddamn hawk. But I will also accept Tucker Carlson going after MAGA, or going after Donald Trump, or Marjorie Taylor Greene going after Donald Trump, or going after MAGA. You don't have to let them in the tent. You can remind everybody what a piece of crap they are, but you can use it for your political expediency. So to speak,
and you also can just recognize it as an indicator. I think it's part of the math of how the stranglehold of Trump on this version of reality or MAGA's belief system is shifting or degrading over time. And I don't care about her. And I'm not like, oh, she's on the team now, the way like some folks have been welcoming MTG onto their shows. Like she's, or even, God forbid, Matt Gaetz over time. I don't need, if they're critical of the president and stuff, all I take that as is a check mark. Like, told you, like, here's that lie. And the fact that she specifically dropped the whole, we've been propagandized by Russia to believe Ukraine is a country of Nazi sympathizers. That in and of itself was the biggest part of it. Now, you might be right that it's tied to a Tucker or Candace related thing, because Tucker had this guy on who was an independent military journalist who was basically just vomiting Russian talking points. I don't know if you saw any of that stuff, but I mean, if you haven't, you've seen it anyways, because it's the same stuff, right? And he was even talking about the Azov battalion stuff as if it's a real thing and still a thing, and the Nazi sympathizer part of it, and that Russia's plan, and this is the part that he's convinced there's a 5-stage plan. I want to hear what both of you think about this, both from a military and a capability level. It's a 5-part plan to what Russia's really doing. And the whole thing about taking the whole country was a head fake, and that they really are just trying to secure the Donbass forever. And so they're creating this line by acting like they're pushing further. And so when they fall back, it'll seem like a settlement. And this is all part of a greater strategy. We're just going to lose 1 million people for I guess, ground we could have bought.
And why do you need Donbass if you can't use Crimea anymore? The only reason to have Donbass is to create the land bridge between Russia and Crimea, because the bridge across the strait isn't going to be enough. So why do you need Donbass? The story the Russians tell about, well, they're ethnic Russians. That's bull. So, this guy sounds, it is what Russia does, to be fair. I don't know this guy. I don't know what he said, and I'm not particularly going to search it. But if he was talking to Tucker about Russia, it's not anything that I really need to hear.
Yeah.
But he is right in that is a common Russian tactic to overstep and then pull back, and that makes you look like you're being reasonable, when in fact you've invaded another country and stolen God knows how much land and how many people's lives have been destroyed by this. But by overstepping and then pulling back, Russia likes to do that so that they look reasonable. They're not.
Right.
And they're also, and also, I don't know if the Ukrainians are going to, the Ukrainians, I have heard the sentiment in Ukraine that Luhansk and Donetsk have been occupied for so long that they've been brainwashed and that they're basically Russians anyhow. And so if we have to give up anything at all, we'll give up those two provinces, those two oblasts. But I've also heard people say that, even just giving them that little bit will make them want more. It has to be all the way back to 91 borders, or they will come again. They'll just go and lick their wounds, and then they'll come back again. And I've spoken to military experts. The last show we had on, which unfortunately was 2 weeks ago because we had a cancellation last week, was the former British military attaché in Kiev. And he made the point that if they are allowed to do that, and if they swing around and take another run at Kiev, that it might not go the same way a second time. I'm with Brian. I don't think they can take Kiev. I don't think and again, you and I have spoken about this many times. I don't know who this idiot was that was talking to Tucker Carlson, but he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, because the strategic reason, the two strategic goals that Moscow has to achieve, there are others, but the two primary ones are: you need to take control of Kiev and install a pro-Kremlin government, puppet government in the capital.
Move
and
back
you
to
have
freedom,
take
2014. Right.
Yeah.
Take Odessa, right?
You have to take Odessa to take control of the Black Sea, which is really what they're all about, is a warm water port. And they can't do both of those things. I don't think they could do either, but they certainly can't do both. They'll lose another million. They'll lose another million men if they try to go for both of those.
Yeah.
And it'll take them another 5 years. And I don't think
they don't
the
have
Russian
them.
people. No, and they don't have them either.
Right.
And they're not going to. The birth rate in Russia is really poor, and they're not going to. Now, if they're able to conquer Ukraine and subdue Ukrainians, and then in another 10 years after, if they effectively brainwash Ukrainians, they'll have another 40 million people that they can draw from there. But that's not going to happen.
No,
it
would take way longer. Like the arc of that is 20 years to start, 40 years to maintain, 60 years to cement. Right? That's a crazy notion, even if you think it's possible. The guy who I looked it up, is Steve Jermy, who is a former Royal Navy commander and is a mill blogger essentially now. And he has a Substack where he talks about this. And he's really, I started watching the beginning of this mainly because it was one of those situations where, and I'll show you guys on the screen right now so you know who I'm talking about, and we'll come back, you guys. This was the title of the video. it's coming. And it was War Update. Military Insider, whatever the hell that means, gives terrifying prediction and reveals how unprepared America truly is. Okay, so obviously a sort of, Chat GPT generated scare tactic, video title. But I
know Alfred from Batman was a mill blogger.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. I thought that guy, had he's obviously been on Finasteride or whatever since he appeared in the American Gothic picture. But the key part to it was that I had not. He started jumping on the standard fare stuff, and all Tucker did was nod, which is his job. When they send a Russian talking point guy to him, his job is to either repeat exactly what the guy says, say of course a bunch of times, or nod the whole time, or look concerned because no one is listening to this person who's got a Substack and is on RT and whatever the hell else.
And what's crazy is it's not the Russians themselves aren't even saying this shit anymore.
No.
You know what I mean? They've stopped with the whole denazification. They've stopped with the whole, all the talking points that we heard when this first came. Like you don't even hear it from them anymore. So this guy in the year of our Lord 2026 to still be on there with Tucker Carlson espousing this crap is just like, a sign of who he wants to win to begin with, and his warped view of what reality is right now in this war.
Yeah, and Tucker sitting there doing his, dog who's heard a dog whistle.
Right.
Cocky
head tilt. Yeah, and his forehead butt crack. And this is, again, it almost seems, as I was listening to it and watching it, I was even more convinced that, like, he's got a deal where he has to put on, because it was so prepped. It was so mechanical. And it was so like, how do we set up these talking points and how do we pay them off? As opposed to an interview with a blogger who you might have some differences of agreement with, or some distance between your belief systems, whatever. I want to get to some of these questions for you guys. There was a question for Phil from Al Yorkie. Drapatye, are people happy in general? I mean, besides, like the worry that goes on, I suppose. Are the people happy comparatively?
In general, or with what just happened with the...
I think in general.
Shake-up?
Yeah.
Well, in general, people are exhausted. People they put on a brave face, and, you get up in the morning and you do your thing and you live your life as best you can.
Keep calm and carry on.
Yeah, but they got that on the wall there.
That's right.
But we're now heading into our 5th year of this thing, and everybody is tired. Everybody is tired, and tempers are short, and but there's still unity, and there's still. I mean, look, we just went through this political upheaval thing, right? Mm-hmm. They took to the streets. They peacefully protested. No heads were cracked. Nobody, people expressed their anger. They used their freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and they changed things. And Zelensky listened, and he kind of reversed his decision. He listened to the people. Mm-hmm. Had that been on the other side of the equation, Putin would have started baton swinging from the very get-go.
And he would have pushed the guy out the window and said, he's not even the choice anymore. So, right.
I was very shocked at the youth of the protesters, coming from the No Kings, Hands Off protests that we have in the States, and, being out there with every now and again somebody that may be of your age, mostly older people in general. These crowds were all young, all younger people that are engaged in politics, that understand to an extent what's going on with the war, what they want to see happen, what each person represents. So again, to have the people go out there, peacefully protest, still acknowledge the curfew, no huge disruptions, and then the police just kind of, actively watching everything go on. And then to hear the president hear their voice and stuff like that and see a change, I think it really gives the people of Ukraine a little boost. Like, okay, we did our part, we were heard, We expressed our opinion, and let's see where this goes from here. So,
yeah, these were not anti-Zelensky protests, by the way. That really needs to be stressed. It wasn't anti-Zelensky. They didn't like that decision. It's like the previous protests when we saw people go to the streets. It wasn't against the government. It wasn't against Zelensky. It was against this decision that had been made, and they wanted it reversed.
And they like the guy, right?
Nobody is calling for Zelensky to step down or to be ousted or anything like that. I mean, okay, let me correct that. There's a very, very small percentage, but the vast majority understand that we're at war. You can't have under the Constitution of Ukraine, you can't have an election. It's not legal. Now they could change that law. They could revoke martial law, and in so doing, make a presidential election happen. But there's not a lot of talk of getting rid of Zelensky. People didn't like the guy who was running the military, Syrskyi. A lot of people didn't like him. He's an older guy. He fights like a Russian because he was trained by the Soviet Union, and people really he cost a lot. He was successful on the battlefield, and it's still controversial here. Some people actually really like him, but both of those guys, Fedorov and Syrskyi. There's no way that both of them were going to stay in the cabinet. So I think when he got rid of Fedorov and the people took to the streets, he heard them. And as Brian is mentioning, one of the things that I think people do appreciate is because they don't have elections and we're under martial law, that to be able to take to the streets and express your dissatisfaction and then have there be a result of that from that.
Right.
Shows the unity of the Ukrainian people. The one thing I don't know if you've picked this up, from your time here as well, is that they will argue amongst themselves. Absolutely. Arguments, and people's tempers are short and they're all tired. But the country is still massively unified. Because what's the option? I just interviewed the guy that's going to be on this week's episode of On the Edge, and we spoke a little bit about this as he was leaving. He's a co-founder of a drone company, and he said, we're all tired. I mean, my house he said my apartment building, the two couple floors below me got hit by debris. We're all tired of this, but nobody is talking about giving up, and we're never going to give up. We'll never stop fighting the Russians. It just, because if we stop fighting the Russians, we stop existing. The country will be destroyed, and we're very proud of our country. And we talked about a number of things, and I don't want to give away too much. And I just only did the interview, so I want to review it. But at one point, he did say to me, the Russians don't innovate. They steal. We do the innovating. We're at the cutting edge of drone technology. The Russians just steal it. They see what we do, and then they copy it, and then they produce it at scale, because that's the one thing that Russia has over Ukraine is its size, its number of people, and its sheer size. So they steal the technology from Ukraine, and then they push it up to scale. And that's what we've been seeing. But they're not innovators. Then, Ukrainians are very proud of their inventiveness. They've been absolutely incredible. And they are, again, still really, really unified. There's no question and no talk, to the minimal, very thin percentage of anybody who's saying we need peace no matter what, and we're gonna give up. It's not here. I don't know. Have you run into any of that?
Even to that, answer Hal's earlier question about are they happy? I don't know how the hell you tell with the Eastern Europeans. They're not the most overly affectionate people to begin with.
Yeah.
So I have a hard time kind of pinpointing what the mood is. To speak of experience, there was a couple, I don't want to say blow ups, but a couple of rows at the market this morning that I saw, but, it was quickly quelled and everybody went their separate ways. I'm sure, like you said, everybody's frustrated and tired, but
Sure.
I mean, the path is clear. You know what I mean? It's clear what they need to do. It's clear. The only thing that is, it's how long and, what is the sacrifice? What's the, the total damage, the toll going to be at the end of all this? But really, I haven't heard anybody from, the NAFO group to the military members that I've had, the opportunity to meet talking about giving up or, this is, it's too difficult for it to continue or anything along those lines.
It is hard to figure out because, even look at Melania. She has resting assassin face. So that's you know what I mean? Like, go ahead and drink. You'll be fine. It's your favorite. Yeah. You will enjoy and take a slight nap. So
next to women.
Yeah. So this is a question for both of you. It started out as one from Hobbs RX. How's the Kiev economy specifically holding up, goods and services and that kind of stuff? And I guess you'd have a new experience of that, Brian, being there. So yes,
I find it really, really strange that I could be in a war zone, a city that's actively getting targeted by ballistic missiles on a nightly basis, and have more convenience and comfort in a lot of cases than I experience in a lot of the cities and towns from the country that I hail from. Right. Whether it's the ease of cabs or Bolt or Uber or restaurants at your fingertips. And I know a lot of the cities in the United States are like this to a certain extent, but the affordability aspect of it as well. Like, it's just, I don't know, there's a lot more, I feel like, at your fingertips here than anywhere else that I've experienced. And it's strange to experience that at the same time. Like you said, you're in an active war zone that is under air raids and a curfew every single night. It's
Sure.
kind of a wild juxtaposition in a lot of areas as well in this. Like you said, the fatigue that sets in with having to get up, go to work, meet friends and act like your life is normal at the same time where you do have a curfew and you are under air raid threat. It's like that whole duality of life at the same time is also fatiguing. That'll wear on you trying to kind of put that through your brain, make some logic out of it, make some sense out of it.
There's also, I think, to your point earlier about the number of young people at the protests, is that there tends to be the more recent your ability to actually protest, the more aware the youth will be that they didn't have this and now they do. A lot of times, one of the reasons why there's so many older folks in the United States at protests is because when the really bad governmental responses, Kent State, dogs and fire hoses and all that stuff happened in the 60s, that's their memory of what it was like, and that's why it's important. It anchors it to them as to why it's important, specifically in our generation and those younger than us. Mostly our stuff has been made up with like AIDS Walk or Walking for Breast Cancer, those kind of things, which are not effectively a protest, and we've always had the right to do, and that's our form of more normalized activism. It doesn't mean younger people don't take, by and large, take it for granted here. But the young people in Ukraine, some of them are old enough to remember at least their parents saying, we couldn't do this, when they were very young, when they were, probably 10 years old. They probably remember when you weren't allowed to do this. And if you did, you got shot in the Euromaidan, that kind of stuff. So what does Brian think about the local cuisine? Says 56 Nick Rich.
I'm gonna out myself here, and Nick knows this. I think he's asking this just to just put me on the spot here. I am not an adventurous eater by any stretch of the imagination. I am not the person that you're going to be asking questions about local cuisine. Stick me next to that McDonald's, and I will just see myself out when I'm done. I want to eat to sustain myself and for energy. I've had a couple kebabs, I've had some dumplings and stuff like that, but I'm not a borscht type of guy. Let's just say I'm not going to go walking down the street chewing on a frozen fish or something.
Phil, you haven't taken him out for some pork fat spread on bread? I love that stuff. It was
Every
great.
time I see him, he's at the burger place. So let's not get fooled here.
No, best joint near me is that burger place. It only just opened a few months ago. Yeah, I mean, there's there's stuff I can give some recommendations. But,
there you go.
The food's good here. The food, it's not a lot of variety, but I
had one hell of a pizza the other night.
We don't have any food shortages or anything like that.
Yeah, that's part of the concern too. Yeah. So, are there still lines at the Kirsch Bridge, and any idea when the bridge will come down? Is one of the questions from SD Sullivan. I'm
sure there's still lines. I haven't seen any photos. I know that they're running out of gas. And I just saw an interview with the head of the Magyar drone unit, which I also have visited. But the head of it was like, yeah, we're depriving them of gas. They're not going to be able to drive their cars. So I wouldn't be terribly surprised if there is a big line on the bridge.
I also heard somewhere that they were specifically keeping that bridge open. To allow
people can evacuate.
Anybody that wants to flee can flee.
Right.
I also think, and this is my own thought process, that the Ukrainians want better air defenses in place, whether it's more of the Patriots, the ability to build them themselves. I think they know once that bridge comes down, I think Russia is going to ramp up even more, depending on their capabilities. I think if they had more capabilities right now, would be getting hit more. If they could hit us every single night with the amount that they did the other night, then they would. But because they're not, I assume that they can't. Is the way that I'm thinking. But I do believe, and again, I don't know how, this is just my own opinion, my theory, that they want better air defenses in place when the moment does arise for them to take that bridge down, knowing that the retaliation and the escalation would come. Again, I don't know how logical or how much military sense that makes, but I think that's like you said, the Russians know that we're lacking in air defenses here, especially with the ballistics and the hypersonics and stuff like that. So I think there's a little bit, especially where we just saw the other day where Trump and Zelensky were talking about the license. I haven't heard anything else to come out of that besides the empty promise out of Donald Trump's mouth. I could be wrong. Maybe there's reporting to suggest that has, the gears have started turning as far as that is concerned, but I'm in the dark. As far as traveling.
Yesterday I had a video on of Kennedy, of Senator Kennedy, who, again, this is one of those broken clock moments where he's clearly pro-Ukraine, and he was asking Dan Kane, he's like, who do we want to win in Ukraine versus Russia? Who do you want to win? And he asked it of Dan Kane, and Dan Kane said Ukraine. And then he asked, is Russia our friend? And he goes, well, it depends on your definition of friend. And he tried to walk around it because of Trump, I'm sure. And Kennedy pushed back on him like, I have a lot of respect for you. I don't have a lot of time. Are they our friend? And he goes, I wouldn't consider them a friend. Like, it was like in his opinion in that regard. And so there was a very clear thing. And he brought up the fact that this $400 million package was waiting. And effectively, it was because Thune didn't want to poke Trump to not sign another thing like the housing bill while the Save America, Patriot Act claptrap is stalled. Because because Republicans know they will lose voters in the fall if it goes into effect. They know their own people don't have the proper ID that they would need and wouldn't be able to verify their citizenship. People in cities do. People in cities got a copy of their birth certificate in a little file in the house. People who live out in Appalachia and places like that, they got to wait a week for the hospital to look it up. I know, I'm from Kentucky and had to get a new one. That's why they don't want it implemented. That's why they're talking about it'll take 6 months and all that kind of stuff. But Kennedy was very clear. Again, there's a certain level of clarity. 85 members of the Senate are just all in on helping Ukraine and aware of the threat from Russia, and they don't. They might have minced words for the last year or so around wherever Trump is, but since it's off his radar effectively, and now it's just a place to sell arms as far as he's concerned, both to NATO and to Ukraine. He doesn't seem to give a shit. And it also might be that Hegseth mentioned this drone partnership thing that the military started with the Ukrainians in exchange for some other stuff under Biden that's carried forward and has been very helpful, especially in responding to drone warfare and being able to game it out in Iran, specifically because the Ukrainians have gotten so good at it. And so he can't shit talk them because those people are our experts now. Yeah?
Yeah. Well, and Ukraine sent drone experts and things, some of their older drones and things like that to the Gulf, which was helpful. And, they're very smart. The Ukrainians know exactly what they're doing. They're and also, it doesn't hurt that they're winning. That it's becoming more and more apparent that Russia isn't going to win this war. I don't know what it's going to look like at the end of the war, but Russia's not going to be in tanks aren't going to be parked, on the street in front of my studio here. It ain't going to happen.
Right.
And so, if they can keep that momentum going, we'll see what happens with the fortress cities out in the east. That has me a little bit concerned, but I don't think that's a done deal by any stretch of the imagination. I think they're going to continue to bring the war to Russia. The Wildberry fire and the warehouse explosions, that was a heck of a wake-up call for them. Suddenly you're not going to be able to – and they've gotten used to – as we have. You can order from Amazon and it'll be there tomorrow. And they got very used to that with Wildberries, and now – that's going to stop. And I don't think they're going to like that very much. And then the petrol situation is still really bad for the Russians. We're starting to see fist fights at, gas stations and lineups that the 70s kind of, gas crisis.
Look like
they're
turning Putin into Carter is the kind of general thought around there, which is pretty impressive. But
Putin's not going to retire and go do Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah. He might contribute to the earth in some way as fertilizer. While
they're laying the concrete for the foundation.
I just continue to get a kick out of the bad luck Russia has propaganda-wise. You know what I mean? It's like they tried so hard to retaliate and have this huge strike the other night, but the footage and the pictures that everybody remembers is like, the clouds of smoke filling the sky of Russia over the Wildberry factory. And, it's just great. And then the last one where their own air defense missile took out their storage tank and blew the top sky high. It's like these long-lasting, iconic images that will be, remembered for some time to come. And it's all bad for the Russians. And they try so hard to get one of their own. There has been, and Phil talked about the fortress belt. There was an unfortunate incident that was been reported recently where, for some ridiculous reason, and I call Russia out for doing this, so I got to stay morally consistent on it, and it's these flag-raising operations. Where Russia will send two guys in behind the lines of the Ukrainians to hold up a flag, to show a drone, to say, oh, look, we've conquered this whole territory. Meanwhile, the rest of the guys are nowhere near where they are. Those two guys are dead within 5 minutes. The Ukrainians have the flag. It's a propaganda. Sure. Ridiculous. It's stupid. It not only that, but it throws off your military, logistically. If you think your military is in one town when really they're two towns back, you cannot make adequate decisions going from there. So recently, Ukraine, from what has been reported, had tried a similar thing in Konstantinivka to send a two-man crew to hold up a Ukrainian flag. Allegedly, these two soldiers were captured and forced by the Russians to hold up a Russian flag. I don't know how confirmed it is, but it looked very much like the same two soldiers. But it's a waste. It's a waste. There's other ways for you to show that they don't hold that territory, or that you hold more territory than they say that you do, without risking these like, again, I find it ridiculous. So I want to stay consistent on calling both sides out for that at least.
Yeah. As a strategy, I mean, there's a question about how much it actually works. Depending on the societies that we're talking about. And that might be why it seems anathema to us strategically. But in the case of, Putin and the Russian people, those kind of tactics, like the strikes inside the country, might be provocative, might be dangerous, might be risky, but have more of a value with those people than they would if our guys did it. We would think it was absurd, right? But even the getting inside that area and being a thorn in their side is enough to, consider it a win of some sort. And that, that's where you don't really get a picture that balances with how we would fight war. And we're not in that one too. So you're taking what small victories you can get would be the other.
And if that's how they were using that situation, I 100% agree with you. But if they were like, look, we got a 2-man team behind the lines. Like, we don't have control over this situation, but look, we have the ability to get here if we want to. Then that's one thing. But what they do is they utilize that. They get the the geography of the place. They get a picture in a spot, and then immediately, not deep state. What's the Syriac? The Syriac map will immediately change the territory to, occupied by Russia, depending on where they took that picture. And it's just not the case. And it just, and like I said, it screws them up militarily, which we've seen from a lot of their mill bloggers calling out, where it's like, okay, you guys think you're 10, 15 clicks, 20 clicks ahead of where you actually are. So when they're telling you, okay, this mission is supposed to start from this position and we'll go here, you're actually not there to begin with. So you're fighting from behind the 8-ball, and it's having detrimental effects on not only morale on the front, but their effectiveness in the attacks. It's like they're not starting from the original point. The commanders are passing it up the chain. Hey, look at this video. We're here. And then they're passing it up the chain. And then by the time it gets to the top, they think that their military occupies that territory when they don't,
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess that depending on your communication levels, that would be the key part of it. If everybody knows it's a ruse, you're good.
Right.
But you can't. It's the same issue with like Russia using Telegram as its primary way of getting to their own soldiers, and then getting all pissed off when it starts getting intercepted by the Ukrainians, and also gets filled with anti-Russian battle propaganda. Right. This was. Let me see if I can show you guys this real quick, and hopefully it will work and you'll be able to hear it. I think so. This guy right here, there we go, this is Kennedy saying this stuff.
Kennedy.
And hopefully we can, do we hear her? Nope.
Thank.
That audio is not coming through because it's being a big jerk. I know why. Okay, sorry. There you go. You guys could hear it though, yes? Or is that going through? Did you hear Susan Collins speaking just then?
Madam Chair, thank you all for being here today.
There you go.
General, in the war between Russia and Ukraine, who do we want to win?
Sir, I want Ukraine to win.
Is Russia America's friend?
I'm sorry, sir, I couldn't quite hear your
Is
question.
Russia America's friend?
I think that depends on your definition of friend. I think it's a complicated
crap.
relationship.
Wait, did I lose them? Did they drop out for a second? Did I offend both of them by putting them in an extra screen? What happened? I've got to go back to my original screen. Hopefully they will return. Gentlemen. Brian's going to be upset about this. Phil's just going to be like, shit happens, We'll wait and see if they come back in. Hopefully they caught some of that. Fingers crossed. Yeah, we lost them. I saw him poof out of there. That happens. Yes, Kennedy did sound perturbed. I will play for you guys while we're waiting some of this. Let's see, is this the primary part where this dickhead
point we're at right now?
Oh shit! That's loud.
It seems more dangerous in the West war against Russia than it has been ever. Can you describe where you think we are and where this is going?
Yeah, let me do it through the tool, Tucker, of the article I wrote on the coming war with Russia. And the reason I wrote it was I'm hearing a lot of people here saying we're getting.
This is the part that stood out to me. This Steve Jeremy was independent strategic journalist, and I presume these are tanned testicles he's got hanging. His chestnuts roasting over a cow of some sort. We're good. Okay. Hopefully they'll be able to rejoin. We're working on it. That's the nature of this, man. They're in a war zone, and the internet and all that kind of stuff it's a gift. If anything can make sure we don't take this for granted, it's moments like this. So, but yeah, Steve Jeremy, independent strategic journalist. Boy, is that an interesting way of saying propagandist. I'm a strategic journalist. I only report on things that will strategically be advantageous to the side I am writing for. Holy shit, dude. He, by the way, says that there was a done deal to end the fighting in Ukraine in the first year of the war, and the Biden administration, had agreed. Oh, there they are. Excellent. So they've come back. Let me jump back into here, and hopefully I will, because I made this whole new window and I was very proud of myself. Bring them back in, and there we go. I say it's Russian gremlins. So I was just so you guys saw the Kennedy stuff. I don't know when you went out. Sorry, let me put this back up here proper. There it is. So just in case you didn't hear it, this was the end of that question.
Getting ready for war with Russia will be.
Oh, hold on. This one.
Russia, America's friend.
I think that depends on your definition of friend. I think it's a complicated relationship. But no, I don't think there are friends.
There you go. That was interesting to me that Kane volunteered that after he did the political answer, almost like knowing that somebody will clip that part, send it to Trump, and shut him up. And then, no. I mean, to be honest.
I don't think there's ever been a time where it should be less complicated.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's really not complicated. They're an enemy. We have sanctions. They're bombing an ally in which we signed an agreement to have them give up their nuclear stockpile in return for our assurance in security. Like it's pretty black and white, if you ask me. You know what I mean?
Well,
so I don't know why the game
and
that's the Trump game. I think you're right. You know what I mean? He's trying to play this to Trump.
There is a new complication, though, and that's in Trump's little, speech to the nation that he coughed up last week, or was it a week ago? Before that, time matters not right now. Last Thursday, right, Jesus. So he was like China, and then when they put out the information. Part of the dump was the fact that the CIA said unequivocally the Russians want Trump to win and they're doing everything they can to manipulate the electorate. The Chinese were like, they didn't like him, but they weren't necessarily feeling comfortable with Biden or whoever else would replace him, because Biden came in relatively late in that process. So they didn't have oh, excellent, Amy Klobuchar loves us. Like they didn't have a target, right? But they knew they didn't like where he was going because destabilization of the American electorate is the goal. Whether you believe they sent fentanyl here or not to do that and that kind of stuff and that real deep warfare level shit is immaterial. They clearly want us infighting this, and they learned it from the Russians by and large. And the Russians, though, want us infighting, but ultimately they did pick a winner. In that election in 2020, they distinctly were like, we need this dude. And I'm of the theory, and I want to hear both your guys' theory on this, is that, and I've been saying for a long time, that they had kind of an agreement with Trump. It's like, we're going to get you in there. You'll be in there for 8 years. After you're reelected, then we'll start doing our shit. Then we're going to invade Ukraine. And then you won't have to worry. You can hold off NATO. You can catch all the shit, but we will give you a building in Moscow or help you out with your friends and help you build golf courses all over the place and feed you money and forgive your loans or whatever, make you whole like they did with Paul Manafort, right? We'll do that if you do this in your second term. We won't make you do it in the first. And then he lost, and Russia was forced to punt a year because they've got a demographic issue is why they need it to happen, which is part of the reason, again, why they would put Trump in there, help him get in. And this was going to happen. And the reason Trump says there wouldn't have been a war is because the Ukrainians would have been defenseless. Trump would have stood down any American support. He would have, stiff-armed NATO support as best he could, and slow-walked everything after cutting, funding to NATO in his first term, and distancing himself. Like, this was a setup. This is a tee-up. And he just didn't mix. He didn't hit the 7-10 split is what happened. He split, he was going for a strike in the first term, and he got a 7-10 split, the hillbilly smile, and he couldn't curve it out. And now that, the information that came out from that was Russia was trying to help him get elected because they still had goals for him.
Yeah. Well, and he works on their behalf. He sees the world the same way as Putin does. He just wants to divide it, split it up into zones of control and things like that. But it also see, this is the other thing that bothers me about that is that it reveals such an ignorance of, shocker, Trump is ignorant.
Right.
But it also troubles me because we see it in the Department of Defense. With Hegseth, we see it with, because then they have to parrot that. It never would have happened had Trump been president. This was always going to happen. I had people in 2014 on Maidan telling me this is going to happen. And, 8 years later, a full-scale invasion. The Russians were never, ever, ever going to let Ukraine just walk away. It just wasn't going to happen. It's like you could have predicted this when the Irish Republican Army took over the General Post Office in Dublin in 1916 or something like that. You can't unring that bell, and eventually the empire comes looking to regain its colony, and that's exactly what Russia has done. Russia is trying to reclaim its empire. It's trying to reestablish itself as an empire. And so this was always going to happen. So the idea that any one president or any one world leader could have stopped this war from happening, maybe you could have postponed it, but you were never going to stop it because this is essential from Moscow. This is live or die. Somebody. There's a guy by the name of the first Chechen leader when they broke away in 90, whatever it was, 92 or 3, who said, the Russian sun will set when the Ukrainian sun rises. And that's at the very end of the Soviet Union. That's the collapse of the Soviet Union. This was always going to happen. It was always going to come down to Moscow or Kiev, because they both can't exist in harmony together, mainly because Moscow can't accept that there's another Slavic country that can be a counterpoint. They want to be the arbiters of what it is to be Slavic, what it is to be Orthodox, what it is to, they get to define the identity.
We live in a branding era. Like, that's is that it doesn't matter to them in any depth, but by controlling that identity, you control the structure of the direction of the country. Because this is, you could argue this is why the Roman Empire turned into the Catholic Church on purpose, was they recognized that swords and shields and brutality will only get you so far, but you can capture through culture a lot easier than you can, through, like grabbing land and holding it.
Hence the KGB and the Russian Orthodox Church.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And this is, and the problem though is that there's a machismo issue both amongst the Trump crowd and Hegseth and Putin that's the same, is that stuff, that soft power stuff is too soft for them and they don't want to look soft, so they can't just rely on that,
Which is so
It-
crazy to me because nobody makes himself look like more of a fucking pussy than Donald
Right.
Trump does.
It's
Nobody looks
amazing.
weaker
Right.
than Donald Trump. I mean, you cannot tell me that going into China and
Yeah.
kissing Xi Jinping's ass and talking about what a best friend he is and oh my God, he's great. Then we find out that they're helping the Russians. Then we find out, or not then, but we already knew. But you can talk about how they're helping the Russians, they're helping the Iranians. Now Donald Trump decides to talk about how it was like all their fault with the elections, and it's like, well, you were just there. Funny how you never mentioned any of this. You didn't put any pressure on the leader. Why is he your best friend if he's, meddling in elections to the degree that you say he is? Not only that,
Right.
but the relief that you had is talking about how Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin love you, wanted you all over that presidency, and that's the same guy that you love kissing his ass, the same guy that you don't put enough pressure on, the same guy that you're letting bomb and drone, an ally every single night while talking about
Yep.
how much he wants peace. Like every single thing he does that he thinks makes him look strong just makes him look weaker and weaker and weaker.
Yeah. My favorite current thing is the other presidents should have done this for 47 years, so I'm finally doing it. And I'm like, why didn't you run on it then? If the whole point was, I'm going to show these pussies how it's done, then run on it. Don't lie to your constituents and say no new wars, no regime change wars, no wars in the Middle East. That era is gone. We're over it. We're sick of it. And then turn right around and do it. Run on being butch as hell if that's what you're going to actually do. And then when he gets in to do the thing, well, people have been putting this off for 47 years. Yeah, we're seeing why. Because once you start this, you're not pulling a Band-Aid off. You're ripping stitches. You're on the end of an amputated limb. It's just like vascular spray at this point. And everybody knew it. And if you were going to do something like that and you knew it was going to be terrible, but the terrible had to be done, which is a reasonable thing to say in the world over the course of history, joining the, World War II was a terrible thing, but it needed to be done, right? You knew the cost. It had value. If that's what you're saying, then don't vacillate and taco back and forth in this situation. Make the case, stick to it, and prove your point. But he's incapable because it was a lie. Now, I understand one of the reasons why he isn't doing that is because he can't, because that's a bunch of shit. But the idea is that's what you're selling to people. One of the reasons why they don't think that, why they're starting to think you're weak or stupid, besides the fact that you are, is that you're not standing up for your decisions and proving it was the right thing to do or the best of bad options, which is also like people will be very forgiving about that. And I think that's where Zelensky finds himself. The best of bad options happens all the time in Ukraine, and they're aware of it.
Or that it's actually reality on the ground, right? I mean, how many times have we heard Donald Trump say that Iran is completely defeated militarily?
Completely gone.
Don't have drones, don't have missiles, doesn't have radar, they don't have attack boats, they don't have a navy, they don't have aircraft. How are they shooting our soldiers with spitballs at this point in time? Like, what are they still using? Like, he sets himself up for failure. You go out with these big hyperbolic statements of victory, and then the next thing you know, they're shooting at ships in the Strait. Next thing you know, they're closing the Bab el Mandeb. Next thing you know, the proxies have been activated. Next thing you know, they're continuing nightly to just add on to the devastation and damage to our U.S. bases in the Gulf nations. I don't know how much you could damage a base, but it seems like they can do it consistently, pretty much. But you need capabilities in order to do that.
That's how they killed the last 4 of our troops that they killed, Right. And it was interesting when the word was 3, and you kept hearing it was 2, maybe 3, right? That was what Trump was saying because somebody was missing, but they were under the rubble more than likely, and so the assumption was that person would be found and declared dead, but they were missing technically for that period of time. And I turn on, God forbid, Glenn Beck's morning show the day after this happens, and he's saying 4. All of a sudden, he's saying 4. Well, why is that? Because he's talking to Hegseth, and Hegseth is telling him the truth. There's 4 dead, 1 in Iraq, 3 in Jordan. Nobody's questioning this. And he probably knows if he wanted to know, and that's the other thing, plausible deniability being a thing. I think these guys are being very careful about the questions they ask right now, that he knows there's over 400 injured. And he's near, that's why the number 4 popped into his head so easily. I don't want to I'm glad you guys could be on, and keeping you for 90 minutes I think is a rock solid period of time, and let you guys get back to running down to the basement and having a slice of pizza and coming back up and going to the burger place and then coming back up and then watching breakout fights at the babushka market. But the other questions they have, by the way, Yanni said stuffed cabbage and pierogies. That sending you that way. But yeah, yeah, I've heard reports. This is from Rock Tips. I've heard reports of vast resources off the coast of Crimea, Ukraine. How does this play into the war? And I don't know if that means that they're shipping stuff in or ferrying it in, and they just keep it far away so it doesn't get hit, and then they move it in, or I don't know what the resources they're talking about. Maybe you guys do, or at the very least, it might just be the idea that the Russians somehow that's how they're supplying the place, because they don't trust the Kerch Bridge and they don't have the land access anymore.
Well, the Ukrainians have been striking the ferries, they've been striking the tankers, the cargo ships that have been traveling in and around that area for quite some time. So I'm not sure what specific other traffic is going on, maybe lesser known, but I would be shocked if the Ukrainian intelligence didn't have every one of their ships, or the vast amount of their ships and abilities or capabilities, already well known and able to be targeted if need be. Maybe they're keeping an eye on some other area, but I have a feeling that they know exactly what's going on and who they need to strike and when.
Right.
Yeah, and there is no safe place in the Black Sea for the Russians. If they try any kind of approach to Crimea, they're going to be in, within firing distance. So I had not heard that. I don't think it's true. If I've understood the question correctly. So Crimea is screwed. Crimea is well and truly screwed. It's just, even though they don't have to put troops on the ground in Crimea, they could just starve them out, and I think that's their intent.
Right. Well, I again, it's not tactical starvation. It's literally just a limiting of supplies and making life miserable for people who are occupying your land, which is a very curious thing. I was, I got into a big discussion with somebody the other day about why squatters' rights are a thing, and how initially they were very loose. Like, there weren't a lot of rules on squatters' rights, especially in New York and other places where, like, if somebody was just gone and you showed up and they came back and you'd been there for 3 days, it would take them months to get you out, right? And now so you have to be there for months without them noticing, and all kinds of other stuff. They have to actively start procedure during 90 days or 60 days, something like that. And before that happens. And the same thing with like Crimea, there's been pushback the entire time, both politically, geopolitically, with the UN, ever since Russia took Ukraine. So the idea that anybody moving there is like, nah, we got this, is nonsense. Like, obviously the Russians know they are unwelcome, and some of them are being given a stipend, being paid a little extra, what have you, to just go there and squat, so that you're a human placeholder. You're a seat filler at the Oscars.
They're really doing that in Mariupol. I mean, they're doing that to a certain extent in Crimea. Crimea is tricky because there is actually a sizable population of Russians in Crimea. It's where the little middle class there is in Russia, that's where they have their summer cottages. Okay, the oligarch class, that's small fry for them. They want their villas, at Lake Como. They're not going to go to Crimea. But what little Russian middle class there is does actually have like summer homes there. And the Russian military presence has been there for so long that they've also kind of settled in there. So there are a lot of actual Russians in Crimea that have always been there and call it home and have for generations and things like that. But Mariupol, Now, Mariupol's a different story. Mariupol has always been Ukrainian, and they that tactic that you're describing of them like, here, we'll buy you a house in Mariupol for, pennies on the dollar, and we'll give you a pension of X, Y, or Z, and it's ethnic cleansing. That's what it is. It's so it's really bad in Mariupol.
Can I add on to that point just for a second? Is something else that I've noticed going over all the Telegram videos, from drones to everything else that we've gone through since the beginning of the war. I'm sure, Hallie, I don't know if you've noticed this too, but I feel like the war has gotten a lot whiter for Russia. Like at the beginning, it was a lot of the ethnic minorities from the outskirts and the villages, from the outer regions. But I feel like it's progressively gotten they're getting closer and closer to that main class of people that they've tried to save, and hopefully the war was over before they ever got to it. The Muscovites, the St. Pete people, but they're the people that the Russians that they were trying to save. They could extend all of these other cultures.
You burned through the military that was already signed up. You couldn't get the conscripts because anybody with a son with a future sent him out of the country as soon as the war started because they didn't want him conscripted. You burned through the Africans that had been working with the Wagner group down there for a while that are offered money to go up there and fight, thinking it's going to be a sweet deal compared to even where they are, and the horrific stuff that's going on in the areas where the Wagner-related African militias, the shit that they do is equally, if not worse, than stuff that happened in Bucha. So they bring those people in. The whatever 5,000 North Koreans that they threw in there for a short while, where are they now?
Don't forget the prison. Don't forget the prisons.
And you empty out all your all the stuff that when Trump's like, these countries, they empty out their prisons, they send them across our border. I'm like, sounds like Russian military tactics to me. And then you run out of those guys. Who do you got? You got the, you're not going to get the prep school class. You're not going to get the oligarch related stuff, but the working folks in Moscow and St. Petersburg that keep that place alive. Those people, it's their sons that are going to be sent into this. You're absolutely right. So
I think they might have another. There's a lot of concern here about another round of mobilization in Russia, and I think it's entirely possible that they might try another round of mobilization, but it will not be nearly as welcome as because the other mobilizations happened out in the Far East. Okay, and Russia is an incredibly racist country, and so they sent their Asian, the Asiatic regions. They sent their native peoples, which the guys that crossed the Bering Strait,
the Mongolian territories,
Mongolian territories, the kind of the non-white European Russians. Well, if they start pulling from St. Petersburg and Moscow, you're pulling from white European Russians. And I don't think they're going to like it very much. So it might happen, but they're not going to. And then also, what good will that do? Because all the Russians will do is send them through a 10-day training course, shove a AK in their hand, and go, point them in that direction.
Right, with 4 bullets and 1 in their pocket.
I think it's a whole different can of worms for Putin, pressure-wise as well, like you're talking about. The people that will be there speaking up and then noticing that their sons and daughters aren't coming home aren't going to be the Asiatics out on the eastern parts of the country. It's going to be the people that, in some way, shape, or form has some sort of status. If you live in Moscow, if you live in St. Pete, you've already got a little bit of status. I'm sure it's not on a general basis, but typically like in North Korea cities, you almost have to be invited to live in the better, what they call the better North Korean cities or the capital there. I think you got to consider yourself somewhat privileged if you live in Russia and you live in one of the bigger cities, the Volgograd, St. Pete's, Moscow. You're already automatically doing better than people just not too far outside of those cities.
Sure, I have a couple of questions, but one that popped up. And the next one is, I think, kind of the biggest current question about all of, Americans' involvement in this anyways, is in China, you have to have a city pass to move from the sticks into Beijing. Like oftentimes you have to work for free to get a Beijing pass, and then you'll get an apartment where you can move your family into it. But when I was there the very first time, they were fixing roads, and you'd see these guys sleeping on slats, like cardboard slats on the side of the road nonstop. And they weren't homeless. These guys were working on the road. They would just get up, work a little while, sleep at night, get up and work, or they'd work at night if it was hot, and then they would sleep during the day with an umbrella over them. But they stayed right there. They would just, and you could see them move as the road moved, as the repairs happened or whatever. But you had to do that for 2 years just to be able to live in the city yourself, and then you had to be there for another 2 years before you could bring your family. Is there a similar situation in Russia, or is it just expense? Is it just rich, have and have not, and rich and working?
They have a domestic passport and an international passport. And the domestic passport, I don't think they have a program similar to that in Moscow, but they do control the movement of their population through these domestic internal passports. And so if they don't want you going to Moscow, you don't go to Moscow.
Gotcha. So Tana Papan asked the question that I was going to finish up with you guys on, which is, why is Kash Patel going to meet with the KGB in Moscow in October? So
I have to say the same reason why multiple people in this administration have chosen to frequent Moscow 7, 8, 9, 10 times without stepping foot on Ukrainian soil, speaking to Ukrainian people, getting the realities of what it's like on the ground here instead of speaking out of their ass and thinking that they know everything that's taking place here. Witkoff, I mean, the list is endless at how many people are dying to get to Russia to shake Vladimir Putin's hand or to get a picture taken with this person or that person. Meanwhile, they seem to be,
I get the politician part.
Avoid Ukraine.
I agree with you on the politician part and on, elected politicians who might feel like that's part of, their version of MAGA or whatever, or the negotiating team or what have you, because it might be that there might be a legit, as stupid as I might think. Again, just because it's stupid doesn't mean it's not the plan. But there might be a legit tactical thing with Witkoff and Kushner not meeting with the Ukrainians in public in Ukraine when they meet with Putin directly in front of him, because that's the only way they think they can make progress with this asshole. And if they show up in there in equal parts, it won't look like, he'll get paranoid or psycho or whatever. Just won't feel like, he can trust them anymore, or they're not on his side of it, whatever, or that Trump's slipping from his grasp, whatever you want to think. But this is the head of the FBI, who has a tendency to go overseas and get drunk, who also has, again, allegedly a girlfriend in Tennessee and an older gentleman that he shares a home with here in Las Vegas. That
maybe he knows a good Russian eye surgeon.
Right, they're going to line him back up. You think they're just going to put him in the right direction? I think that's more of a muscular skeletal expert that they'd have to do. It's a realignment thing. Here, look, pencil. I move pencil. What are you doing? Why are they? I'm not holding two pencils, asshole.
Do you know how long is this trip been scheduled? How long is this trip been scheduled?
As far as I know, it just came up in the last week.
Would this have anything to do with what you mentioned earlier, as far as the information release of Russia? Obviously, I feel like we already knew this, but the stuff that the Trump administration had just let fly, as far as the Kremlin definitely being behind Trump and stuff like that, maybe how to handle it. I don't know. I mean, there's so much I feel like that this could be.
I think.
Why the hell would the FBI go to anybody?
Yeah, so he's scheduled to visit Moscow and St. Petersburg in mid-October. October. The FSB is hosting him, and it's not clear whether he's going to meet with Putin or anybody at that level. I don't see that happening. There's no way Putin is, that they're going to plan that ahead of time. They might drop it and come in there to look like, look at this. We Epstein files, and here comes Kash Patel to beg us not to release our stuff, right? That might be their bell that they're ringing, but it's hard to tell. But
and they've decimated their Russia experts within the FBI. I mean, the mass firings within the FBI, specifically of FBI Russia experts. So, we don't, there was a time when we would hunt down, the FBI would hunt down Russian spies, and we don't have any experts in that field in the FBI, hardly any, because they've all been broomed out because the Trump administration doesn't want the truth about what Russia's been up to.
So the legit reasons that I'm hearing for him going are the standard work of the FBI and the FSB and that kind of stuff, is just like a legit terror warning, security warning of an intelligence level. Okay. The idea that they would be giving them that, we tried to do that with that theater that that they seized, and they told us to fuck off, and then it happened, and maybe it was because they were ignoring, Biden people or what have you. But
is there any precedent for this? I mean, I could see if it was like a security conference, some huge thing, conglomerate of people from around the world sending their security experts. But is there any precedent for the head of the FBI? I mean, I'm not hugely old, but
I'm sure it's happened in the past. But
it
would be very different. It would have been formalized, scheduled down to a T. The schedule would have been publicly released. You don't just hop on a plane if you're the head of the FBI and just fly over to Moscow. It would have been it would have been worked out.
So
state would have gotten involved. DOD would have gotten involved. It just
Well,
if it did happen in the past, it would have been taken far more seriously.
Yeah, Louis Freeh. Yeah, Louis Freeh went both times. The first time he went, and this is the only other times, there's only two people who have done this before, him and Robert Mueller. And Louis Freeh did it in 1994 to open the FBI's first Moscow office, because only a few years before it was now open. And so if they were going to coordinate, international criminal stuff, they would have an office there. They have one in Paris. They have one in London. It's not that weird. And then he went back in 1997 for how's it going? And then it wasn't until 2013 that Mueller visited and met with Russian security officials as a part of a security cooperation discussion that was right after the Boston Marathon bombing, because we had a similar issue as theirs in theory from the Chechen rebels and stuff like that. Many like the sympathizers that took that theater and killed a bunch of people, just recently. But that's it. And the weird part is that it's hosted. This one is specifically hosted by the FSB. It's not to go see our FBI people. It's not just go to our facility there that still exists in theory, right? Just go there to see how those guys are doing. And then it is a hosted trip by them. So obviously, they'll be better at hiding him boozing it up in some basement, that looks like it's from a cheap version of John Wick than the Italians or whatever during the Olympics. But the FBI director and the FSB hosted visit right now is it's super bizarre, and it stood out to people because it's so opaque. That's the other part of it. It isn't like the FBI officially announced a thing because here's our 5 concerns, and in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine thing, we don't want criminal issues and terrorism to go by another. We still have cooperation with all countries that we can, blah, blah, blah. Like that's not hard to do. And the fact that they're not really doing it is the sketchy part. Like they're not even doing the performative bullshit. He's just going.
Yeah, while we're at war with the country, and while our ally Ukraine is actively seeking out FSB members. I mean, wasn't that long ago we saw the apartment that was struck because they knew it was being utilized by, I forget how many, but there was some FSB members in there. So it's like, again, the juxtaposition here is rather wild. I mean, the other times that you said, I don't believe, I know we're not actively and technically at war with them, but I think it's pretty clear to see who we should be supporting, and that this is the biggest war in Europe since World War II. I know they call it a special military operation, but everybody knows what the hell is going on and what this is.
Yeah.
But it's just
same thing as Iran. So political, and I looked up to see if there was an official FBI statement real quick. There is none. There was no reasoning whatsoever. Politico reported that they asked the White House. The White House referred them to the FBI and the Justice Department, and the FBI and Justice Department did not respond at all.
Now, Cash been on the shit list, Hal? Like, wasn't it reported not that long ago that it alleged that Cash was kind of on the shit list as far as
you think they're gonna you think they're sending him over for a little dose of Lindsay tea?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't go that far as what I'm saying, but I wouldn't put it past them. But just giving them the shit assignments, I guess. I don't know. Just putting it like the shit they were putting on Vance. It's weird. I don't know. I'm trying to rack my brain to figure out any option or why this is something that could be going on, because it is just that odd, and it's very easy for them to come up with an excuse or to make it seem like it's an official type of bullshit. Hey, we want to make sure that the spread of military weapons after this conflict doesn't lead into arms sales into whatever the hell that they could say, to make it seem like it has some air of legitimacy. But they're not even going that far. It's just we're going to meet the FSB. We'll tell you what the fuck we talk about, maybe.
Jesus Christ. Tucker Carlson interviewed Victor Boot. Like, for fuck's sake. Like he was an expert on war strategy or some shit. And for those that don't know, Victor Boot is who we, traded for Griner. And like, he was one of their biggest arms dealers in
the Merchant of Death.
Yeah, the Merchant of Death, literally, like selling stuff all throughout. It's why, if you look anywhere from Palestine to Pakistan to Africa to like far Asia, the reason people are running around with AK-47s is that guy. Like, he's the hard sell. Yeah,
I'll give you a Nicolas Cage movie.
That's right. Yeah, or just watch The Fifth Element and understand that effectively that what's his name is playing Gary Oldman is basically playing that guy. Now you understand, if you reset it in 5 right with his Kentucky accent and his buck teeth, very disappointed.
I love that movie. It's such a
I
good
do
movie.
too. It's 9 movies all sausaged into one, but it's still adorable. It really is. It's like a kid going, when I write a movie, it's going to be Star Wars, and it's going to be Total Recall, and it's going to be Batman, and it's going to be, and it's going to be Ford Fairlane all in one.
And I want Chris Tucker in the wildest outfits you can imagine.
Right. Yeah. Right. Come in, my man. They're shooting. Come on. I can't. The issue, like, that I think a lot of us are concerned with is the timing. It seems like an absolute last ditch. This is the phone call right before the midterms. If I could end the Ukraine-Russia war, if I could get Russia to stop or say they're going to stop. And again, the timing, October was supposed to be the timing for the Ukrainian announcement of an investigation into Joe Biden last time. So the idea was he sent over Rudy Giuliani. Remember, it was a perfect phone call. Why was it a perfect phone call? Because I didn't say any of the shit it could incriminate me. I said it exactly so they understood. And then Rudy went over and told them, when there was nobody around, like in a mafia setting, nobody's wearing a wire, right? We're going to hold back your arms if you don't do this. That's what that was. And the timing was October. The goal was, if people have a chance to look at this, whatever the fuck comes out, they're going to know it was bullshit. But if it happens close enough to the election where people are like, what? And they vote like that, then there's a chance they might bully. He stopped the war. Like, look at Glenn Beck or any of these assholes, and the last 9 times they've said this about Ukraine. or I mean, about Iran, rather. Think about how many times that they've, like, high five, he's the peace president is back, right? Or after the 12-day war last year, like all the people like, I don't like it, I don't like it, I don't like it, I don't like it. He won, we like it. Like it was pitiful. And
Benny Johnson must have at least 35 videos with the thumbnail title, "It's over."
oh yeah.
Peace
Or
prize.
is it?
Eye out for the end.
Hold on. Or is it?
Keep an eye out for the end times.
Right. Just always remember that. But I'm gonna let you guys go. I'm gonna because you've been having you on together was terrific, and I've got to ditch out at the top of the hour exactly, at the bottom of the hour exactly, so that I could go run off an issue at the pass. So all the family juggling, all just the plate spinning and the stuff all at once. It's a good time. And at the very least, thank you both for coming on together. This is really awesome and a very special experience, like for me and the viewers and everybody. And I want to remind everybody subscribe to Boston Brian and Philip Ittner's YouTube channels, spelled just like that. And give a thumbs up.
We'll probably do like a collaboration before you leave. To get Brian's final thoughts, and we'll put it on both of our channels.
Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that'd be terrific. So be safe, guys. That's all we will say on behalf of the pearl clutchers in the chat room. I will always give you that kind of like, guys, for me, okay? I know the noise just becomes background noise at some point, but for me, right? Just go, please.
Well, it's amazing that after one ballistic missile attack, you can already hear the difference between one that impacts and one that's intercepted. Like the difference in the rattle of the front window of my hotel was different based upon if it impacted the ground or if it was one of the few that managed to be intercepted by the
right.
defense. So.
Yeah, and then 2 more weeks you're there, and you're like Colonel Kurtz in Heart of Darkness, like talking to Phil, like, you don't remember, boy, and you just put on 100 pounds. What happened to there's the burger and the pizza?
For Phil and obviously the people of Ukraine that endure night after night and just get up every single morning, put on their shoes one leg at a time and just get on with daily life. I mean, for Phil, for somebody that doesn't have to be here, who chooses to be here because it's that passionate about it, and he made promises and he's going to live up to those promises. Yeah. A whole boatload of respect and admiration for him and many other people like him.
Took the words right out of my mouth, and it goes the same for you, my brother, for going over there. We greatly appreciate it. And we will talk to you again soon, because I would love to hear a wrap up, have you on next week when you're back, whenever, and have you talk about your experience there, stuff that stood out, stuff that, We
didn't even get to me getting hit in the back of the head with a glass at a Ukrainian-Mexican restaurant while we were doing American karaoke. So that's a story for when I get home.
Yeah, but I've been, in my defense, I've been out with you after a Sexy Liberal show. And my only question is, who threw the glass? Lawrence O'Donnell? You know exactly what I'm talking about, and that's all I'm saying. And I'm not saying any more. And that will be a subject of discussion sometime in the future. You could.
I thought we forgot about that.
I don't drink. I'm not allowed to forget anything by how my brain works. I temporarily displace items in my brain because of the other stuff that's there. It's crowded, but it's never forgotten. The way these people are like, scotch, pour on the thing, wipe, and it's gone. Like, I never had that. I don't have that, right? All right. So you guys are wonderful. Thank you, guys, and I will see you again real soon. There they go.
Later, brother. Thank you so much.
Right.
Boston Brian and Philip Ittner, not only showing up together on the show, but also, going through one little breakdown in our regular communications. And why is I gotta bring this down a little bit. Just take this down to the point where it's here. Yeah, that's better. And then it should close out the mask edges. There we go. I've got to try it like more. Let's do that. And then that's a little better. Takes the little edge out of the thing. I'm always tweaking my stream live. It's so unprofessional. Speaking of unprofessional, I've got about 10 minutes left, and I before I go out the door, and I didn't want to like not close down and have to run out the door after this. Tim Dillon, real quick. Tim Dillon's one of these people who I was really unfamiliar with, but apparently was a big deal in maggot circles and that kind of stuff, and it was basically like a morning zoo streamer, right? Is as best I can determine. I mean, I don't know what the root of stuff is there. He's got lobsters on his little table and all that shit. And let me drag this out. There we go. I don't know. Maybe because is he in Maine? Is that where he's from? Is that a thing? I almost gave you a clip of him yesterday. Yeah, I saw this one yesterday, and I was like, I can't do this on the afternoon show. I've already seen it. But maybe that's what I do in the mornings occasionally is like, hey, I saw this last night. I want to share this with you guys. The title of this is, just a little bit, Trump is doing everything he said he wouldn't. Yeah, stupid. He's a liar. Christ almighty. So listen, what I'm shocked by is the shock in his voice.
Comes out yesterday and goes, the voting's all fucked up, but yet the Republicans won 2016 and 2024, and now they have the House and the Senate. They have all of those races they won.
Right. And it might occur to you that if he says the election's rigged and he wins, it might be because he rigged the election. It's a possibility. And that the way you defend yourself against accusations that you rigged an election is to project that rigging onto the other side to cover for why they didn't win, even if the polls were going against you, because you were stopping them from rigging it and you won fair and square. Do you see how this game works?
And they won the presidency. And he's claiming that the voting is the biggest issue. They genuinely, literally right now, have they have the Congress, the House, the House, the Congress, Senate, everything. Kind of most of the Supreme Court. Thomas Massey made that point. He's like, we kind of have all of the things we could want. And they're...
Yeah, real quick on that. Fuck Thomas Massey saying it. I've been saying it for years. Like, once you get elected, complaining about rigged elections is a little bit of methinks milady doth protest too much. Like it's like you're telling on yourself, or you're just a whiny bitch and sore loser like Trump is. And if you don't win them all, you still feel like a loser. And we don't have time for that shit. It's, like national psychotherapy through praise of our dear leader. Buzz off. But anybody who was saying rigged elections in Georgia, like MTG was saying this shit, I'm like, how did you get elected then?
Going out and going, the election was stolen. Now, by the way, I'm not saying there's no voting problems. There's probably voting problems.
Yeah, look at the villages. How many times do I have to bring this shit up? People who were arrested and did jail time or got 5 years probation for voting for Trump 4 times. Probably some voter fraud, like the guy who murdered his wife, allegedly. He's on trial. The trial's next year. And reported her missing and voted using her ballot for Trump in her stead because that's what she would have wanted.
There's weird laws in California that let people show up to a polling station with a bunch of ballots, go, hey, my whole family voted, and here's what they think. That's weird.
Also, that's not weird. There's a lot of states that do that.
But Trump's out there talking about voting. He's the president.
Mm-hmm.
It's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's almost like he knows he didn't win fair and square or something.
It's like the voting irregularities and the elections are stolen, but you're the president.
Yes, I know. It's just shocking that he could be this blazingly full of shit.
You're the president, and you ran on a platform of no new wars, and you're about to put troops on the ground in Iran.
Wow. It's almost like a lifelong liar who was a second generation rich kid born with a silver spoon up his ass, and has been living off the tit of other people's money his entire goddamn life, whether he was defrauding the taxpayer through IRS tax breaks he didn't deserve to get, or through Russian money ill-gotten through Deutsche Bank and those other things, and still couldn't even make his properties profitable. And his only real flim-flam that seems to be working right now is fleecing maggots for, with his own crypto coins, which, by the way, I completely support. I can't tell you. If you're a maggot, and I know we have some in the chat on occasion, and thank you for boosting us in the algorithm, and I pity you. I understand where you're going to go, right? You're going to go to somebody else's chat room and go, I agree, things are awesome. You can't do that. What do you do? We did it. Grocery prices, fuel is down. Yay, the Iran war was won in a matter of days. Hoorah. Cuba's the 51st state. I don't know what the fuck. You go over and cheer on over there. The Epstein files are all out, right? You can't do that because it's not true. So you got to come over here and go, bah-huh, right? Whatever. But thanks for being here. And by the way, thanks for writing stuff in there, just as long as you don't use any, racist, sexist, or bigoted language. Just use your big kid words so that they don't it doesn't get auto-modded out, because you're telling the algorithm, not only is he adorable, he's engaging as well. But the key here is that you're shocked that Jeffrey Epstein's wingman, a world-renowned bullshit artist with, fancy restaurants with a lot of gold leafing all over everything, that gets shut down because they have rats and rat shit in the food, that you're surprised that guy ran on No New Wars and he's breaking the promise?
1,000%. You are the president. You're not popping shit from outside of the government. This is the thing when JD Vance goes on Rogan and goes, well, they have this whole discussion about the Epstein docs, and JD is like, I'll go to my death believing it was a larger conspiracy. It's kind of like these guys are like, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's like, no, you're the vice president. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's almost like it took Tim Dillon 2 weeks to quote me when I covered that actual interview, that clip from Rogan, where JD Vance I don't know, but golly, there's something going on there. Asshole, you have the same clearance, unless Trump has directly rescinded it, as the president, to go and look at shit. If it's open, and the stuff that's been released, you have access to that just like Congress does, because you're the president of the Senate if necessary. So you can go look at all that shit, dum-dum. So if you're not looking, it's because you want plausible deniability. You want to make sure you don't see shit and have to lie. Because you'd have to, because you hang around the fucker. You hang around Trump. You hear him talk all the time. You hear him talk about Ghislaine Maxwell and what she looked like in a bathing suit, right? That's what you hear. And so you're like, fuck, man, if he's saying that around here, if I go look at the files, there's no telling what shit I'm going to say. And if I get called out on that, and then they find out later I made a visit and looked at the stuff and it gets released, and they know I'm lying, right?
JD Vance is talking about this like he's a guy at a bar in the town I grew up in.
Right. And that excellent point in the chat from Tesh90, which is the whole point I was going to make at the tail end of this before I fucked off right away. And thank you guys for being here, and remind you to subscribe. Tim Dillon also helped elect Trump, and now he regrets it. Too late, buddy. Right. Tim Dillon helped elect Trump. Tim Dillon is his show. This is just his clips channel. And it's got, I don't think it shows the subscriber numbers for that. Just this clip has 132,000 views. His actual channel, Tim Dillon Show, 1.2 million subscribers. His clips channel has 317,000. This guy was pushing Trump to win and all that shit was a big supporter. And now he's like, what? Who is this guy? Why are they acting so stupid? How could he lie so much? I'm like, first of all, just start apologizing to people like me. Just do it. Maybe one day you'll have an epiphany on top of this, like, holy God, Donald Trump is a flim-flam artist. He's a fucking con man. He always has been and he always will be, and he has no idea how anything fucking works because he's always been a second-generation rich kid with a grudge that he's ugly, and he beats the world up over it. And women fall into two categories. Whores, because they will sleep with them even as ugly as he thinks he is, knows he is, and women who can see through his facade of bravado and don't want to sleep with him, so they must be bitches or the enemy. That's it. Why? Because he's got low self-esteem. You know why he's got low self-esteem? Because there are reflective surfaces everywhere around him. Yeah. I wouldn't even give him credit for being mothers. That's a bifurcation that's relatively normalized. His are like whores or traitors. Because neither of them like him, just one will at least play along with his bullshit view of himself and the world. But Tim Dillon helped him get elected. Tim Dillon was telling people, I'm sure, like all these other assholes, that Trump would be better for Gaza. Trump wasn't going to get us any of these new wars, even though he promised to get us out of Afghanistan and fucking didn't. Released 5,000 Taliban murderers before he even had a plan for evacuating our staff from Kabul. Left it up to Joe Biden. We now know he was never going to leave. He keeps talking about keeping, Bagram. He was never going to leave. Trump was never going to get us out of Afghanistan. That's why he says it was the biggest embarrassment or whatever. We gave up that base. He keeps saying it. Leaving was the embarrassment, not how we left. We were going to leave with dignity and strength. How long does dignity and fucking strength take? Another decade? Shut the fuck up. And all of these guys suddenly going, I can't believe it. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to give you credit. At some point you showed up for work and you were able to tie your shoes and brush your teeth in theory, or unscrew the top of that water bottle by your lonesome. You've got enough fucking brains where stupid isn't cover anymore. You believed it because you wanted to believe it, or you had other reasons for liking him that you can't say in public. And if there's this whole Trump's not like other politicians, he's more honest about things. Well, then be like your fucking hero and admit it. Otherwise, if you really were suckered by this bullshit after COVID, for real, you were after that, you're like, what the hell? If he knew more about ISIS than the generals, and he knew more about war than the generals and stuff, then why couldn't he get us out of Afghanistan without a shot fired and nobody dying and all this stuff? Why does dignity and strength take a third term? If you're the greatest in the world, maybe if you kind of suck, maybe you have to drag it out, right? Maybe that's what Trump is ultimately admitting, that he's just slow in his old age. He could have fixed this with one phone call, the Ukraine-Russia war. He could have fixed it with one phone call in his 40s. But he's, now at 80, he's dragging ass a little bit. That's the problem. Just getting up out of that chair. That's why they don't show him getting up out of chairs anymore, right? That's why they don't do it. Meanwhile, Democrats have helped pass a bipartisan housing bill. And what was Trump's response? I'm not going to sign it. Still became law. It was like last Friday. Still went into law. It still became a law. And again, this is why, maggots can't, join together and sing Kumbaya and join in with other Republicans. It's all working so well. It's why they can't band together and go, look at all these wins. I mean, even with the border, like, we closed the border. Sure you did. That's why there's train cars full of people coming across, and they all go straight to farmland, and they all go right to work because Trump gave them a pass. And we're just not counting those people. And again, if there were 35 million more undocumented people in the country than there were before Joe Biden came in 4 years, why can't you find them? Why aren't mass deportations easy? Holy shit. These people must be crammed into, broken down hotels that went out of business. Every motel you drive by on the interstate must have a bunch of fucking, like, immigrant families hiding in them. Where are they? They're all psychos and murderers, and the murder rate is going down. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Andre, I saw that one. Anyways, I'm gonna let you guys go. I gotta go. Look at that. I was supposed to leave a little bit early, and God damn it. But anyways, this is this song goes out to Tim Dillon and all the people that are just now, I guess, waking up from their intellectual coma, a medically induced coma from some like maggot injection they got in 2014, where they actually thought this dipshit was good at his job, knew what he was doing, and actually cared about anybody but himself. This is some bullshit. And no, I'm not giving any of these dickheads a pass until they start going, maybe I shouldn't have demonized these other people. Maybe they're not against me. Maybe they just want better for the country. Hit that like, share the show, subscribe. We're still out. All venom, no style. Promise they rot in the air. A handshake, a lie, a blank, cold stare. Puppets dance, the strings are tight. Shadows whisper in the dead of night. This is some bullshit.